Thank you, Naman. It was rather a very exciting session. I hope you also enjoyed it as much. Now we move on to the next segment of our session today. And please join me in welcoming our esteemed panel for the discussion on the role of innovation in strengthening cybersecurity and digital supervision in BFSI. I'd like to invite our first panelist for this session, Mr. Rakesh Asthana. May I request you, sir, to join us on stage? You're already familiar. Welcome, Mr. Rakesh. Next, we have with us Mr. Anand Tapikar. Mr. Anand comes with 20 years of extensive work experience in cybersecurity area. He is currently the Director of Cybersecurity, GE Healthcare. Welcome, Mr. Anand. Our next panelist is a prominent industry leader in cybersecurity in India, with 30 years of experience in risk management, mainly in the banking and telecommunications sectors. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bharat Panchal. He is the Chief Regulatory Officer, Discover Financial Services. Welcome, Dr. Panchal. May I also request esteemed panel members to have a seat according to the display which is here. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have our next speaker, Mr. Tarun Vig. He is a self-made entrepreneur and business executive with a decade-long outstanding track record in growing and leading high-performing startups in India. He is the co-founder of NFU Labs, a research-oriented group using AI and ML for national and cybersecurity. Welcome, Mr. Tarun. Please join us. Our next panelist is also an entrepreneur, Mr. Trishneet Arora. He started his journey in 2013 at the age of 19. He is the founder and CEO of Tax Security, a San Francisco-based cybersecurity risk and vulnerability management company. Mr. Tarun, please join us. Sorry, Mr. Trishneet, please join us. I would now like to hand over the discussion to Mr. Rakesh Asthana to take it forward. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and sorry for the delay because of the traffic. Our panelists could not arrive in time, so we had to reschedule these sessions. Now, this particular discussion is with regard to digital supervision and cybersecurity innovations in BFSI sector. I'll begin with a personal experience, which will give you an insight about the security threat which we face while dealing with the data and biometrics. I was DG BSF and had gone to Kutch along with the senior officials for some work. While returning, I had to catch a flight from Ahmedabad. The moment I boarded the flight and flight started moving, I got 3-4 messages quickly on my mobile phone that your biometric has been authenticated and this much amount of money has been approved to be deducted from your account. I got surprised because I have not done that. I checked up with my wife whether she has used something, my Aadhaar card or something like that. She said no. By the time flight was taking off, almost 40,000 rupees were taken out from my account. I requested my officer in Delhi to immediately contact Mr. Panchal and block my card rather. It was done. So by the time I landed at the airport in Delhi, I could see that I am less by 40,000. 40,000 is very small amount for us, but for a poor man it is a very big amount. Being a police officer, I thought that I should definitely look into it. Who has the guts to defraud me? It was a challenge for me. So I have an officer who is very good at cyber security and investigation. So I asked him to get into it because I was not dealing with the regular police. So we got onto the job, and finally we could locate a gang in Gorakhpur, Jamtada, and a place in Palamu district in Jharkhand. That's all right. The offense was registered, some 40, 50 people were arrested, mobiles were seized, large number of laptops, printers, everything was seized, and the case was detected. I got my money back from the bank because it was not my fault, and bank refunded the money. As a police officer, my inquisitiveness was to find out what was there, how my biometrics were stolen. You will be amazed to know that few months, I was about to retire, so I thought my papers are being prepared in BSF, and they have taken the fingerprints for my pension papers and all, so that might have been leaked. But that was not so. What they had done, they had gone to the registry office. I had purchased a flat few months back. I did a registry, so they secured my fingerprint impressions from there. They transferred it onto a butterscotch paper, took a very high definition photograph, and we have this system of bank buddies and all with POS machines. They just put that high definition picture on the screen, and it got authenticated. So it was a very unique thing for me because that time this battle of Aadhaar card was going on in the Supreme Court. It was very sensitive thing. So anyhow, we solved the case, but what I want to tell you here is that the more the technology you use, the more the dangers are to misuse it. So being the leaders in the technology, it is our duty to be a step ahead from the fraudsters. Now this industry, BFSI, is a thriving industry now. It has been growing very fast, mainly because of the rise in per capita income, technological innovations, and improved and integrated supply chain system. With this advancement in technology comes the other side of the coin, that is the breach in the security system. The data which you are going to use, it's a big data. It's a personal data, and if it is breached, it can create havoc. We are talking about the AI. Few days back, I got a video on my WhatsApp which mentioned how by using the AI, your child photograph can be misused for committing frauds, or it can be used for exploiting the child sexually also online. So it's a very dangerous sector. AI is a very good technology, and the financial sector is using it in a big way. Big data analytics is there. So many things you can do with this technology, and your sector can grow leaps and bounds. But when it is breached, how to tackle it? So again, the technology comes into play. So in this panel discussion, basically we deal with the cyber attacks on security system and how to mitigate it. We in the business sector, we all know that the government and the regulatory bodies have come up with various policies, various directions. One of them is policy pertaining to information and cybersecurity, ICSP you call it. It is a very robust system, and its implementation may mitigate this type of threat to a great extent. Another aspect is cyber awareness. You create awareness amongst the employees, the third-party service providers, the contractors, so that it can be prevented. And through this policy, the key areas of focus is data leakage protection and technology risk assessment. This will lead to regulatory compliance, fraud prevention and detection, and operational efficiency. So within this framework, this panel discussion will move, and basically we'll be discussing the cutting-edge solutions to these problems, forming up of strategies to deal with the situation, and also the best practices in the industry. Our panelists today are Mr. Bharat Panchal. He is the Chief Regulatory Officer, Discover Financial Services. Tarun Vig, co-founder NFU Labs. Trishni Taroda, founder and CEO Tax Security. And Anand Tapikar, Director of Cybersecurity, GE Healthcare. Before we move forward, I'll request all the panelists one by one to please introduce themselves. Then we will further discuss on the topics. Please, Bharat.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for setting the right context. My name is Bharat Panchal. I work with Discover, but my famous role was one of the co-founder of NPCI, and I was Chief Risk Officer of National Payment Corporation of India, and that's where the UPI is born. So that's something great contribution to the nation.
Tarun, sorry, please carry on.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Anand Tapikar, and I am a director of cybersecurity in GE Healthcare. In this panel, I would like to learn and share my thoughts on defense and protection strategies. What Mr. Asthana has described as a very scary, and I agree. The mistakes are very costly in this field, and we all need to be vigilant in this field. And whatever I could share, I would like to share in this forum. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Trishni Taroda, founder and CEO of Tax Security, a vulnerability management company, homegrown in India, moved global a couple of years back. As Bharat sir has said, mentioned about UPI, so we are one of the company protecting UPI application that anybody is using here from many years now. So yes, that's what we do.
Hi everyone, good morning. So I am Tarun, I'm a co-founder of NFU. We use artificial intelligence and machine learning for national security. If you know about NIC, National Informatics Center, which provides email to Government of India, to every employee in Government of India, the cyber security of that platform is our solution. Our solutions are also running in ICICI Bank for loan fraud analytics and in multiple law enforcement agencies for investigation and financial fraud investigation purposes.
Okay. Now, since you have heard the panelists introducing themselves, we'll move forward. We have divided this discussion into 7 parts, key areas which requires attention and discussion with regard to the cybersecurity and threat and the innovations to deal with them. First area is to deal with the emerging technologies which we are using in the BFSI sector. It is artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, big data analytics, and blockchain. Mostly these technologies are being used. So we should know from the panelists that how these advanced technologies are working in the BFSI sector, and I'll request Tarun to start with the discussion on this.
Thank you so much, sir. So from our experience, BFSI sector and law enforcement, they go pretty much hand in hand. They have a lot of data. When we talk about bank, any bank for that matter, even a cooperative bank, right? You have data in terms of millions of transactions every day. You have data for loans, you have data for credit cards, debit cards, and all these databases are lying in silos. I believe SBI is one of the first banks in the country to go for a data lake, to actually implement what we call an intelligence fusion center, where you bring all your data from different databases into one big data repository, you correlate everything, and you get a 360-degree profile of every customer at a click of a button. At this point of time, what is happening is all these banks, they have different departments. Every department is maintaining its own database in silos. So when they want to profile a customer, they are only dependent upon one particular database. They are not looking at the overall transactions, overall data pertaining to that customer in every other database. So big data analytics has come into vogue. Banking industry is embracing it. When we talk about artificial intelligence, essentially everybody here knows that AI is nothing but a mathematical model. It's a play of numbers, right? Essentially what you need to do is you need to get all your data into one place, you need to convert it into some sort of a mechanism to make it statistical, and then run the AI models on that. Banks like ICICI Bank are already using artificial intelligence for loan fraud analytics. So today, as an individual, if I apply for a loan to ICICI Bank, it actually goes through an automated mechanism where the system gives you a threat alert, whether this individual should be given a loan or not. And last but not the least, these three, I'm only talking about the projects that we have personally been involved in. I would let the rest of the panel discuss their experiences. But last but not the least, AI is being used extensively for NPAs, for early warning system for a non-performing asset. NPAs at one point of time were a big problem area for the banks in India. Today, with artificial intelligence, with the capacity to process so much of data quickly, we are in a position to implement early warning systems which can actually give you an advance warning, whether the loan that you have given to a particular corporate, whether that loan will be returned or it will perform or it will become a non-performing asset. So these are the three areas that banking industry has been using, at least from my experience, that they have been using AI and big data analytics extensively. I would let the rest of the panel share their experiences.
Rashneet, you can comment on the this aspect of use of technology, modern technology in BFSI, and what is its effect on the operational efficiency of the sector?
Of course. Before I begin about the BFSI sector, cybersecurity need in the BFSI sector, I would like to add, I've also, how we have seen Appy High pitch today. I've done a lot of pitch in the past, never got a funding or never got a customer. I think that's the reason that I'm sitting here. So, but you never know when you become so big, and when Appy High becomes Microsoft of photo AI. So, and we are all looking to get hired there. So never throw them like that way that we did. It's not a wise thing. Not with Appy High, but with any of the startup, because startup is the backbone of India, not the large industries anymore, right? SMEs, MSMEs are the backbone which really generates a large employment. So we should, it's not about tax security, it's about any startup. So we should handle them with care and respect. Any of them can become Google of India or Microsoft of India. So coming on this, on cybersecurity need in BFSI, cybersecurity is a very broader term to be described, but any digitalization is, the center point of digitalization is cybersecurity, right? So you can build anything on digitalization, be it BFSI or be it technology, anything. The cybersecurity is needed, right? It's unsaid thing. And the best part
about the cybersecurity in India, the largely is used by the government or by the BFSI, right? Why? Because there is a regulatory involved. If there is no regulatory involved, nobody would even though care about cybersecurity also. It's a good thing. That's why we also exist. That's why the cybersecurity in India exists, right? SaaS is a software as a service, security as a service. There is also CAS, compliance as a service, right?
We'll come to that regulatory aspect and supervision
Sure.
in our second section of that, which I'm going to take up. Second is this challenges and opportunities in digital supervision. Now the financial services are moving to the digital platform, and simultaneously the regulatory authorities are also imposing a lot of restrictions and supervision over it. They also face a lot of challenges. So, Anand, can you throw some light on that with regard to the regulatory authorities and their, how do they synchronize and counter the threats?
Sure. So security, as is describing, that security has multiple facets now. So one, if you ask a person, his understanding of security is very different. For one guy, it's a compliance. For other guy, it's a regulation. The third guy, it could be a secure coding or how to build a secure application. The fourth guy, it could be a privacy. I mean, I think there are 8, 10 such different streams in the security. But in this question, what you are asking about the regulatory aspects of a security, it is becoming very important. So I worked in BFSI earlier, but I come from healthcare industry right now. And in the healthcare industry, there are multiple regulations. You must have heard of a HIPAA regulation. You must have heard of FDA 510K regulations. And there are many, GDPR, in India also we are coming PDP and many other things. So there are regulatory framework available for every industry. For financial, we have a PCI DSS and many other regulation, RBI framework. So in this regulatory framework, that is what I describe is a very, very important to comply with, but that is the first step. What sir has described initially, the example of a data breach, of biometric and other things, that are the very, very scary things. Just by complying the regulatory standard will not be enough. You have to do a much more than that. And that regulatory framework provide you at least the initial level of security. But based on your use cases, based on the type of services you are providing, type of data you are storing, sensitive data or non-sensitive data, there are regulations, that there are mechanisms available now to protect it. So I just like to... Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Now this cybersecurity and its threat landscape is quite wide. A lot of things can be used to put the cyber space under threat. But so far as BFSIs are concerned, mostly we come across ransomware attacks, data breaches, insider threats, and social engineering. Now, how innovation can be leveraged to proactively detect and respond to these threats, especially with reference to the insider threats? Bharat, I'd like you to throw some light on it.
Thank you, sir. So, the BFSI sector, especially in last 15, 20 years, the largest innovation what we have seen, that is into this particular sector. And the way we are enjoying today the digital movement, be it banking, be it in a supply chain, be it healthcare, or be it any other area. You know what? We have gone a lot along with the technology innovation. And technology has become so much so dynamic, and there is no harm to adopt the technology as and when new things come. But the delta between the technology innovation and the uses, there was one part which was missed out, how it is going to impact to the end user. When technology is used in right way, then it's fine. But when such innovation used in wrong way, like the people sitting in this room are having very positive innovation for betterment of the society. But at the same time, what sir described about the innovation of Jamtara gang, which gave me at least 2 sleepless nights to figure it out that who did this particular scam with sir, right? And that they are also doing innovation. They have their own school, they have their own courses. Now they have gone much ahead and they have started online courses. I'm talking about the Jamtara gang. So with all these things, we haven't thought about the security when we started way back in 2000. And what is the best example about security? Let me tell you about the IT Act 2000. Everybody must have heard about this particular act. It does not talk about the cybercrime. There is no word even internet into that. Today, entire our life is fully dependent on the internet. And because of that, so much of cybersecurity threat have arisen. Now, I have led, the biggest of the biggest data breach in country, like, you must have heard about the Cosmos Bank and, Hitachi Payment System and many more. What was the common point into that? It was not that they were not having tools, they were not having technology, they were not having, the adequate manpower. Everything was there. But it was a sense of alert that what can go wrong with the new age technology when you are deploying into the new surface. When it comes to, the kind of cyber security landscape, today the cyberspace every day get 1 million new malware, new Trojan, no virus every day, which is impossible for anybody to identify whether the newborn babies are there in the market. And even if you identify it, there's no vaccination. How are you going to protect that? That is where the innovation is needed. Now, look at, let me give an example of my favorite UPI. So UPI, when we started, there were 100, 2,000 transactions. Now it has gone to billion. How are we going to manage the kind of, the security challenges with this number of transactions? And we must be aware about that. There is no benchmark of what India is doing today, nowhere in the world. Be it product, be it value, be it volume. And in that challenging area, how are you going to manage cybersecurity? That's where innovation has played very, very significant role in terms of using AI, using, the innovative model where, the transaction is completed in 200 milliseconds, sorry. In 200 milliseconds, you have to see the transaction, you have to find out whether the transaction is genuine or fraudulent or suspicious. Accordingly, you have to alert to the bank proactively that this transaction has to be declined. This is just impossible task for manual process. And that's where innovation has played major role. But what is unique for our country, and that's always I keep on, urging to the startup. I happen to be one of the co-founder of the most successful startup of India, that is NPCI. And it has changed the landscape of the way we are doing banking today. But your innovation should keep not only India in mind, please, not the India what being talked in political arena today, but India where only 20% people of us are living. We should think about Bharat, where 80% of people are also, they are not tax heavy, they are not having any...
Bharat, I will cut short
Sure,
of
sir.
this thing because we are running short of time. Innovation is the key word,
Yes.
we all know. So innovation is must for data privacy and data protection both, because that is very sacrosanct. And in this area, innovation has to be very forthcoming and useful. I'll ask Trishneet, because this customer trust is paramount in BFSI sector. Unless you earn the trust of the customer, you cannot progress. And for earning the trust, you'll have to tell the customer that your data is protected. Trishneet, how are the BFSI organizations using encryption and biometrics to safeguard sensitive customer data? I just mentioned about the biometrics, so that is very relevant. So please throw some light on that.
I will not tell you how they're using it. Then Jamtara will find out the way to breach that also. So because it's confidential and cybersecurity it's a confidential word itself, right? So, but I would definitely tell, as Bhai has already mentioned about the innovation UPI, right? So, UPI is the itself, speaks itself about the BFSI, about the country, right? It's a future of the payment worldwide, not in India, but worldwide, right? So it's not limited to biometric, or it's not limited to data privacy, right? As Anand has already mentioned, for somebody it's a secure code, somebody it's a privacy, right? Somebody it's a compliance, right? But end of the day, what we are trying to do is make the transaction safe in the BFSI. That's the end goal, right? And the customer data safe so that they can't use it adversely. So there are a lot of measures being taken care by the bank, right? One of the large bank in India, I think their cybersecurity budget is as equivalent to the IT budget, right? So, but still, if you ask me, are they 100% secure? I would say that they are 1% secure. Why? Because 99%, it's all over the attacks which will take the place, right? We should appreciate what NSA, Mr. Dewal has recently said at the BRICS, is, we should lead as a country, as India, on the cybersecurity front and talk cybersecurity separately from the BRICS, right? So just, I'll take 1 minute on this, right? So Australia has a cybersecurity ministry itself. Singapore has it, right? I think it's the right time for India to have a separate ministry on cybersecurity, because that's the real thing for us to take it forward. Yeah, sir, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, with this, we move ahead to the point of collaboration. We cannot work in isolation. No industry can survive or progress in isolation. Similarly, so far as this particular topic is concerned, the BFSIs have to collaborate with various other financial institutions, technology providers, and regulatory bodies in fostering a collective defense against this threat. I request Mr. Anand to kindly enlighten us as to why this collaboration is essential for a robust cybersecurity framework, and some examples if you can share on this count.
Sure, thank you. So I remember, I will not take a name, but the largest retail supermarket in US got attacked, and the threat vector was found in one of the AC vendor who has installed there, and because of that, the whole network of that particular supermarket got hacked completely, and the data got stolen of millions of customers. So what is important here is securing the value chain or ecosystem here. So if you are doing a business with or banks is not alone, right? You can protect the banks, the application you can protect, but you may be talking to the 10 different vendors, and those vendors may be talking to 10 different other vendors. So it's a whole chain which needs to be secured. Then only the security can be achieved. It's not necessary that they are connected to the network of the bank or any other institute. They may be providing a data, they may be using the data, or they may be processing the data. That's why if you see nowadays regulations which are coming up, be it talk about the GDPR, talk about the HIPAA, talk about the FDA compliance, they all talk about that how do you make sure that all the points wherever the information assets are available, including the vendors, including even if there is a large customer where you are dealing with, those every places you need to have that security in place. So it's actually the terminology which is used, a little technical, is called SBOM technology, SBOM based, software bill of material based. So every vendor, whosoever is supplying to that data to you, you need to ask for the SBOM. And using that SBOM, you yourself needs to build some kind of mechanism to check the vulnerability against it. and make sure that those vendors held accountable for those vulnerability. It is a very, very risky thing because for the customers, and it can happen to Mr. Asthana, it can happen to any one of us. And the banking industry is most susceptible to this kind of attack and is very visible. In the healthcare industry also there are attacks, but they are not so much visible. But in this case, they are very, very visible and it impacts the person. So I feel the value chain needs to be completely secured.
Sir, if I may add one
Yes,
thing
please.
on the collaboration part. See, earlier days when I'm talking about 2000 and before that, we used to do banking. So bank, your customer, your CBS, your ATM and your branch, it was completely closed loop. Today we are in interoperable world. It is not only banking, but you know, your money is going to insurance and insurance is going into the stock market. Now, what is the biggest threat today in banking sector? It's not about the vulnerability in the banking application itself, but the guy who is getting the SIM card with a fake document and registering as a registered mobile number with CBS. How that coordination is bringing down the all innovation in one particular sector and because of the lethargy to other sector. So that's where the coordination is very, very important. And when data breach or any fraud or a cyber attack happen, it is not only on your bank or only on your organization. It is to across industry, and you know there is a serious domino impact because of such things. So that's where collaboration brings a lot of value in today's cyber attack area.
So we have to fight it out collectively. That is the essence of it. Moving forward, what is the future of digital supervision? What we foresee? On this, I like Tarun to throw some light with regard to the technological innovations which you foresee and what should be done further.
Sir, I've always believed that we should learn from history. Now, if we look at the past few attacks which have taken place in the country, which we are all aware of, the AIMS attack, it was in the headlines, the HDFC data breach for loan, people who had taken loans from HDFC, that is all over the dark web. The SolarWind attack, where Indian Army's critical data got leaked. Now, there are 2 points. You know, if you look at all the commonality in those all 3 attacks, one, the response has been very slow. It took us 2.5 to 3 weeks to recover from the AIMS attack, to recover the entire assets which had been encrypted using ransomware. It took us 2.5, 3 weeks to recover that data or find out a solution to it, right? The other, there was no impact analysis. You know, the organization themselves had no idea that, okay, the server got breached, what is the actual impact analysis? It was only when all that data went onto dark web and everybody started creating a hue and cry about it, did organizations wake up and say, okay, we've lost so much of data. So there was no impact analysis. From my thought process, there are 2 things which are going to come into vogue in the BFSI sector, which has to come into vogue. One, a forensics desk in every bank. If you look at countries like Saudi Arabia has made it mandatory that every bank in the country will have to have a necessary forensic desk. So in case a breach happens, you immediately you do a DFIR, digital forensic incident response, you do cyber triaging, figure out how the attack took place and cut off all necessary assets where the same attack vector is shown. So we believe that a forensic desk will become mandatory in every bank in the BFSI sector. And one very critical piece of technology, which is, you know, not a lot of organizations in the country are using it, data discovery. You know, today your data is in, you know, AWS servers. You have data in maybe Azure cloud, in your own servers, in your own laptops. But you do not have a mechanism to figure out what data is lying where and what is the criticality of that data. So data discovery as a software is going to has to become a necessity, where as an organization, you know at any point of time what data is lying where, what is the classification of that data, and you know if that particular asset gets breached, what is the impact that can take place. The same softwares are being used for compliance also. These 2 technologies are already getting used across the world. So we believe that in India, we'll probably wake up and start using the same technology sooner rather than later.
That's good. And finally, we come to the part of how to balance the innovation and security. Anything which we do in extreme is not productive. So there should be a fine balance between the innovation and the security. I like Anand to comment on it and thereafter Bharat to pitch in on this.
Uh, as, as we are actually talking to startup community more here, so innovation is the key. And innovation, I always say that cybersecurity should not be the hindering factor for innovation at all. I mean, it should be enabler for any kind of businesses. So if we are doing the things in the cybersecurity which is hindering some very important business functionality, then something is wrong somewhere. That needs to be balanced it out. And for that, I'll take a one simple example, which I give generally in panel discussion, is that when we go into the airline and we go and we just generally sleep, we don't care about that how the plane is flying, how the speed is, what is the mechanism of a motor. I don't care any for anything else. So cybersecurity should become that seamless, integrated into the product. And the product, when the product is getting designed, it should follow the methodology of SD3, what we call it, secure in design, secure in development, and secure in deploy. So digital monitoring also comes in the secure and deploy. So that everything is taken care with the product delivery. It should not be afterthought, it should not be abandoned. Then only the innovation and security can go together. Thank you.
Anand, that is what exactly we, at least I have personally experienced when you see any of the product in banking today, be it, right from UPI to IMPS to RuPay or FASTag or anything. What was the key ingredient of security was security by design. Security, quality, and compliance cannot be an afterthought. It has to be inculcated right from the day when you think about the product. And that is what exactly, I have personally seen in my career. But, in today's era, I mean, when, sorry to, not to target startup, but don't target to a startup valuation than startup innovation. Because when you are running for startup, valuation, that's where the biggest problem is coming. Innovation is welcome, innovation is necessary, but not at the cost of security for whatever you are doing. I think that is where the balance is very much important to have.
Thank you. And Trishneet, you like to butt in with yours?
So yeah, startups has to, you correctly said, startup has to focus on value, not valuation, right? It's very important what Anand has said to look into it, that everything is in innovation or technology, cybersecurity should not be a showstopper. It should be an enabler. That is very much said, right? But we also have to look into cybersecurity as a need, not as a threat, right? We look at cybersecurity as a threat. Today, if you ask in innovation, if a CIO asks money for innovation from a CFO, there is definitely a value add to it. But if a CISO asks money to protect that innovation, there is no budget for it, right? So there is a need of shift of a mindset, right? And build a right ecosystem. Right ecosystem can be built when there is a proper understanding of the landscape of cybersecurity, not for a CFO, but also at the board level also. So that is only possible by quantifying the risk, the language that board understand, which is a dollar value, right? So if the board understand dollar value of a risk, then I think they would wisely invest also, right? And they will also understand how much they have invested, how much dollar they have saved against that innovation, right? So innovation and cybersecurity is a parallel job, right? It's not a threat. Cybersecurity is not a threat to innovation. It should be enabler, as correctly Anand has said, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. We have almost overshot the time which has been given to you. I'll just sum up what we had discussed. Now you see, innovation is must. We should not avoid it, and it is must, mandatory for all of us to survive and grow, particularly in this sector of BFSI. But as the panelist has said, security should be embedded in the innovation. We should not avoid it. I'll end up by saying that when I joined the service, initial periods of my service, whenever we used to advise any industry people with regard to the security, which Trishneet said, the same thing they used to say, sir, investment in security is not productive. We don't get any returns out of it. That is the mindset which we are working with. We should avoid that, because once the breach is there, then you can imagine what type of havoc can be created in your sector by this cyber breach. So please ensure that, and I'll end up by saying, initially we used to say that time is money, but now data is money. Please preserve it. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can discuss with us outside subsequently. I'm sorry we ran out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. I'll invite Mr. Nitin Agarwal and Anuj Gulati to come on the stage and give them a token of appreciation. Please. And finally, a group photo, please, for everyone on the stage. Please stand for a group photo. Asthana ji, a group photo ho jaye. A group photo, please. Meanwhile, let me introduce COE, the tongue twister that I gave you earlier. We do a lot of co-creation. The co-creation is the magic which can come out from when enterprises talk to startups. We have done a lot of them, in fact, more than 400 of them in our kitty in the last 7 years. We also, from time to time, in order to give those success stories to the other enterprises than the startups, we give them an award. Thank you very much for all the panelists and the moderator, Mr. Asthana. I'd like to invite Sanjeev. Sanjeev, please come and facilitate the use cases that we have been able to get some successes with the enterprise and the startups. Sanjeev, please come on the stage. I will request all the enterprises and the startups to come quickly. We are running a little short of time, so let's see how fast you can come onto the stage. Thank you.
All right. Very interesting segment, guys. I mean, this is the result of the effort that has been put over months. This is what we actually do to make some of these solutions that are done by some of these innovative startups that you have been, that you saw this morning, and we'll continue to see more of these. And people spread all over the country. There is a great amount of work, good work happening. I think a lot of us even don't know about it. And how do we actually make it more productive by having them work together is the key. So, so I think next segment we will be focusing on and actually celebrating the work that has been put by both by enterprises as well as by the startups. With that, I would like to invite Selena. She's the innovation leader from Baxter, and Baxter is a company, who's one of the big, large companies based in the US, working in the areas of many different areas in the renal innovation as well as many other areas of medical technology. I will also like to invite Niveda Ramkumar, director from Algorix. Difficult tongue twister for us. They are actually the startup who have been working with them on a solution which actually made a lot of impact. Come, Naman. Come. Big hand for them. So Selena, do you want to quickly cover the use case? Just talk about what the use case is, Yeah, please take the microphone and.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, NOSCAM. This is a privilege and an honor, and glad to be here and enabling Baxter in its vision for connected care. And happy to partner with Algorix. So NASCOM had enabled us to partner with Algorix in a span of 8 to 10 days, where we were able to shortlist from 20 startups to one startup and then partner with them. And then our results of coming up with an analytical dashboard for one of our main product lines was done in 8 to 10 weeks, which is amazing. Yeah? So their expertise in drug coding and Baxter's expertise in workflows and systems helped us to achieve this in such a short span of time in a time-effective and cost-effective manner. Yeah? And this also involved global collaboration between US and India as well. Yeah? So it's a lot of work, a lot of people collaborating together, and thanks for all the support that you have given Baxter.
Wonderful. So, big hand for them. Maybe take a seat. I think we have a memento for you, and we'll give it to all together so that we can all have everybody in the group. So please be seated while others are coming. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Adidev Katiyar from Yokogawa, and also Puneet Badrinath, founder of Fabric, to join on the stage, please. So Adi, you want to talk quickly on the use case? Yeah, please take the microphone, and you must want to share what is the problem statement that you have been working on.
Okay. I'm representing Yokogawa here. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know Yokogawa, basically we are in process automation domain, and our major industry vertical is oil and gas, right? Nevertheless, we have been working in different domains as well, be it bio, life sciences, renewables. Our current marketing short-term perspective is autonomy, from automation to autonomy, right? And this involves all the new technologies what we have been talking about, like AI, ML, AR, VR, so XR or metaverse. So that's where we hit upon my dear friend Puneet. And it was wonderful collaborating, because a person cannot just build up everything on its own and serve the customers. So that's where his expertise comes into picture, which they are doing it quite long time. We have taken this solution, right? So that was the first aspect, which was our collaboration. It went very nice. And sorry for torturing you with all our domain things. He was very patient listening to us, and we could build up that solution actually. And the second part is we are utmost focusing on strengthening this ecosystem. And that was wonderful, Puneet. Thank you.
Great. So for those you may not know, Yokogawa is one of the Japanese large companies working on multiple areas, and sometimes they talk about the problem statements. I have difficulty understanding. They say that you want to produce energy from algae. I've never heard this kind of a thing before. So thank you so much for pushing us and we taking our boundaries much wider and deeper. All right, please be seated. Next, I'd like to invite Shilpa Nayak from Nataxis and Utsav Mathur from Geometry. Natixis, those who may not know, is a large French bank with large operation in India. Welcome both of you. So Shilpa has been a pretty active player in the innovation ecosystem, and had a pleasure of working with the French bank, who again have been thinking, as you say, outside the box. And you need people like Shilpa to drive these things, to the level where they have worked on some great solution, which I'll want you to talk about. So please take the microphone and.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, NASSCOM, for actually aiding innovation managers like us to really bring world-class solutions from India, to be scaled up to global users as well. So one of the use cases that we have been working on is virtual reality, metaverse, onboarding for our employees. NetAccess is a new setup, as you all know. We just started our operations in India 2 years ago. We all were onboarded virtually during COVID, so none of us actually had the chance to interact with each other. So that was the genesis of this use case. Considering that we are a new setup working with our nearshore centers in Hong Kong, Singapore, Paris, and Amer, it becomes super important for us to have a little bit more understanding of the organizational culture, which may or may not really reflect very well when you're only conversing through your Teams channel or any kind of regular traditional channels of communication. This is where I think how can we give our new employees an experience of having insight of how the NetAccess culture is, how is it to live a day as a banker within the banking world. So this was the use case. And this was just an idea. What I really liked about the Geometry solution is, they really gave a form to the idea, right? Because the kind of solution that they have is quite mature. It doesn't look like your typical, when I say, virtual world, I have seen a lot of solutions out there, which pretty much comes out as a Cartoon Network channel, right? Because we are a serious French bank. I don't want a cartoon avatar of myself. I would very well like a realistic avatar, and at the same time, really not dumb down the metaverse experience for our, on new employees. So that is where I think the Geometry solution was super interesting. And I think it has a very likable form, which looks quite professional. It doesn't look cartoon channel. So thank you, Geometry. I think wonderful platform, and look forward to scaling the solution and really taking this forward.
Looking forward. And a quick shout out to, if you don't mind, a quick shout out to NASSCOM as well. I think you're seeing a lot of these innovative solutions coming out and startups to connect just because of the name that you give and the backing that you give. Without that, directly reaching out to startups is not always possible.
No, I think it's a win-win for everyone. I think I'd like to also call out my colleague Sushant, who's been at the forefront of it. Sushant, apna haath utha lo, people may want to reach out to you. He and his team have been working actively with all of you. So lastly, I would like to call Mr. Abhinav Singh from Jubilant Foodworks and Sanatanam from... I missed out a name here. Bero, okay. So, yeah. So, first tell people about Jubilant Foodworks. What are the big names that you are operating? A lot of people may not even know that. Even I didn't know it till a year ago.
So, it's the biggest QSR player in India. And we are operating with different big brands, including Domino's, Popeyes, Dunkin', Hong's Kitchen, yeah. And this is for adopting AI-based digital procurement assistant. So to procure raw materials and for sourcing, we used to base our decisions on our internal ERP systems, and there were some external databases. So this was a very cumbersome exercise to derive insights through these isolated databases. It was basically subjective, and it was based on intuition. Now with this assistant, we have integrated all these databases, have also factored in macroeconomic conditions, which can impact the price fluctuations of these raw materials. So we can decide on when to source in the materials, at what time we should buy in, how much we should go for the forward buying. We have also factored in unstructured data, including news, which can influence the market movements, and also factored in the historical performance of our buyers, how they have performed. So with this, we have come up with a real-time information database and dashboards for different important matrices. And thanks to Bayer team and NASSCOM to bring them into the mix.
Great. So with that, I think we'd like to hand over the mementos. Dr. Rashmi Saluja, I'd like to invite you here on the stage to hand over the mementos for the excellent work. I just noticed a pattern. We had look at the spread of these companies. We have a US multinational in medical space. We have a we have a Japanese giant, you know, who's into oil and gas and many other sectors. Then we have a French bank, and now we have an Indian company here, you know, who's, of course, has got a lot of US linkages and all, but, you know, so look at the spread, and this is heartening to see the kind of thing, you know, type of companies who are getting into it. So thanks to all the innovation managers who are here, you know, in your work, and we look forward to doing more of it. Dr. Rashmi. Give it to Right, so one more. So we'll probably, yeah.
You can own stuff.
All right. Baxter and Algorix. Baxter. Who did we miss out? Shilpa. So while I have Dr. Rashmi here, I will want to use some of your time just to chat a little bit with you, given that, you know, you had one of the large financial services company of India and had a pleasure of having you today. So I don't want to miss out this opportunity to spend a few minutes with you here on the stage. So please.
I've known Sanjeev for 20 years and I really now know what he does. So it is, in fact, it's been a very interesting meeting, and with my company and NASSCOM, we have really enjoyed a fantastic couple of months, in fact, and understood that how we can actually do a better work in BFSI segment. So in BFSI, it is not only the business development that we're talking about, but more important also is to ensure the regulatory purposes and the regulatory framework is very well met with. Not possible to do it without technology. And that is what we have learned. And in spite of the fact that each of our company has its own technology wing and we are trying to be digital as possible, but much better is that we partner with organizations like NASSCOM and take full utilization to develop business and not duplicate the technology and actually scale it up from where all these intelligent and smart people are already working on. And that is how we got in touch and we wanted to do it up. The only difference in us and any other company which is going to be how well we are utilizing and participating in technology. So we want to not only be the consumer of technology, but we also want to invest in it and also to ensure that the technology is homegrown for companies like us. So that is also value for money for us.
So that's a very good thinking, but let me ask you in a little honest way, you to tell me, do you see some of the large companies, lot of your company leaders, do you see startups as a threat or just an opportunity only? Do you think that they also become a threat because they are so fast and nimble and they're at the forefront of technology and they can churn out solutions like this while you have long decision making? I'm assuming you have. I mean, I don't know, but so what is the feeling inside your company? Do you really see that?
Both. So I'll be very honest, it's both. It is, while we feel that we've been working and we've spent so much of time, money and energy for all these years we've been doing, and then all of a sudden a startup comes over, especially in the medical technology, and then he just shows one app and one screenshot and says that, okay, here it is. Forget about everything else that you've done. But how to utilize him and actually put it on to what we have already done and ensure that the platform is so robust and the strength and the credibility to his technology is going to be given by companies like us. So I'm happy, and also I know that this innovation can be added on by Religare and companies like us.
Okay, that's good. Let me ask you other thing on your personal challenge of you being, I have known you as a doctor all this while. How did it feel to be running a company of this size in a different space altogether? I believe they don't teach finance when you do MBBS, right?
No, not at all. So in fact, I'll tell you what, the technology in all the other spaces that we're talking about has been an innovation of last couple of years. But the only real-time technology that was in medical and the medicine. Unless and until I had the machines and the equipments and the labs and the radiology labs and all those things, that was for us was the real technology, and that is how the world actually caught on to. Now it has become digital in every space. Now you're eating a food and you know exactly what calorific values and how things are going to be and so on and so forth. Now it is next level technology in each and every field. So my knowledge of technology was there. They didn't teach us finance, but they really taught us how to differentiate between AI and RI. It is artificial intelligence and the real intelligence. But today I think so it is the same. Very difficult to understand whether it is AI or it is RI, because RI is going to be nowhere anymore. It is the artificial intelligence that's going to be. Whether it is in birthing, as simple, as basic, as natural as birthing, has got technology in it. So I am a better doctor if I understand technology better. But today I'm a better investor if I understand technology better. I have an access to data. I've got access to understanding what is right and what is wrong and what is going to be scalability. The only different thing that is going to be, Sanjeev, is that how well I am ready to accept my brain should work as smartly as the technology is working.
That's pretty remarkable, you know. I mean, I appreciate what you are doing in terms of, I mean, I would have difficulty doing that, having spent all my life in technology. There are a lot of new challenges that are coming in this field, in both in terms of how fintech is changing and the neobanks are coming, and the way you are steering the company in the direction. From my experience, most of the people who have been working with us have been overseas companies, as you just saw from the spread of the nations that we had here on the stage. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate you and your team to have thought in that direction of being, moving ahead in the direction of technology, partnering with smaller companies. It's no ordinary thing to do and think like that, right? And some of the companies who are great companies across the world actually are great because they invest in innovation. It's not that they became great and then they started investing. So it's because they thought innovation from the day one, and that's why they are great. So congratulations on that. And I'll also like to open it up for audience also to ask any question. We don't have that many opportunities to meet leader like Dr. Rashmi. Mostly they are either in Bombay or doing their money counting somewhere else. So
in fact, I have a question from Sanjeev, in fact, but also I want to tell you one thing. Religare has become Religare today after a couple of years of hard work. We've had a turnaround of Religare Enterprises, and we had a very difficult time. The only thing is that if we had an integral part of technology which actually ensures that regulatory framework and the risk and the fraud understanding of, it should make human beings make it very difficult to do anything wrong. And that is where, in fact, I feel is where we should be investing time, money, and energy in so much of good technology that it becomes impossible for us to do the wrong. And it is caught in the public eye how we do it. Sanjeev was in US. I wonder how it is for you to adapt yourself and to re-innovate and to do all this. How's it? Is it the culture different? Do you enjoy better?
Initially it was, but being in Bangalore, Bangalore is a culture which is, I would say, international culture. Bangalore is one of the unique cities in the country at this point where you don't, either everybody feels an outsider or nobody feels an outsider, right? This is really a melting point of the sort, right? People not just coming from different parts of the country, but also coming from different parts of the world. I mean, you will see some of you in your neighborhood, you will find people who are into different, coming from different parts of the world. So I think I would say it's not been that difficult. I think by being in Bangalore helped me.
That's amazing, in fact, and that is where, in fact, what I really feel and my expectation from these newer companies is that they become so good and so indigenous that we save on time, money, and energy, and we really, really help them grow, and them should help us grow.
All right, wonderful. I think given that we are running out of time, so we will not extend this thing more, but given that we have Dr. Rashmi with us for some more time during the day, I think we'll want to utilize this date for more interactions. So if there's anything now, we can talk now, or we can push it to during our lunch discussions also.
In fact, happy to be participating the entire day. Some amazing technology startups, and we have our entire team, all 4 verticals, and their head and their technology head are here. Please feel free to participate in any which capacity. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Doctor. Dr. Rashmi. So with that, I think we'll move to next session. But before that, I'll just quickly want to introduce one of our dear partners, who's come from Mumbai, Bhavesh from IDFC Bank. Please come on the stage quickly. I mean, since you came all the way from Mumbai, I do not want to miss this opportunity to have your mind into what banks of your scale are doing. You may want to give a 2-minute overview of your innovation initiative, because you are the leader there for the innovation.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you so much. Right. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks, Naman. Thanks, NASSCOM team for putting this together, and also the opportunity and partnering with us in promoting the innovation ecosystem. Guys, before I begin, I'll not take more than a couple of minutes. Can we have a big round of applause for the NASSCOM team for putting this together, please? Thank you. Means a lot. Thank you. So great. I'm really delighted to speak to you about IDFC's journey in adopting artificial intelligence and technology in per se, right? IDFC Bank is a digital-first bank, a challenger bank, right? Which rides on technology, which essentially focuses on use cases of technology, right? And AI being one of them. But before I go on to speak about IDFC's journey and various use cases that we dabble in, right? Let me tell you quickly about my own journey. And I'm kind of been a banker, went to technology as a seller of technology, and I've come back to banking now, right? So I understand, I've seen AI in particular from the time it kind of started, right? About 10 years back when I was with one of the global technology companies, right? And we were trying to put together use cases for artificial intelligence in particular, right? We reached out to multiple, obviously, financial services organizations and banks. And trust me, the way it works with commercial organizations, that it has to play either one of the 2 roles. One is either it has to bring in efficiency or experience, or improve experience, so to speak. We did a POC with a multinational bank, a subsidiary based out of Singapore, and the use case was very simple, right? The fact was that, I'll not take more than a minute. The fact was that we wanted to create essentially an advisory platform to advise wealth customers to remove individual biases there. Okay, and we figured very soon that the POC obviously bombed. We figured very soon that data is very important, because unless you have good data, AI does not mean anything to you, right? So with that, I mean, the one thing that I wanted to leave with all of you and the startups here who are actually making use cases, right, is to ensure the customers that you go to, right, that you educate them about having good data first, right? Otherwise, you will not get the results. So the basic, because data is all about 70% of AI that we're talking about, right? So thank you so much again. Thank you, the team, right?
Thank you for a very short brief of yours. Now let me invite you for our next session. It's on advances in AI. The panel, if I can request the panel to come, Ms. Sridevi Vadapalli, please. She's a Deputy General Manager at Daimler Truck Innovation Center, India. Comes with 20 years of experience of data science experience across retail, BFSI, automotive industries, driving. Please come. Driving value through data science, AI, ML solutions. Please welcome. I'd like to also invite Deepika Sandeep, Honeywell Director, AI, ML. Subhashish Mishra, please. He's a Director for Data Science at Walmart Global Tech. Please come. Himanshu Parashar, Director Data Architecture and Operations WebTech. And Shubham Dokania, Research Engineer at Mercedes-Benz, R&D India. Over to you, Sridevi.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Maybe a quick round of introduction is what we will start with. So I'll go first. My name is Sridevi Vadapalli. I take care of big data and advanced analytics at Daimler Truck Innovation Center, India. We're into the business of manufacturing trucks, and yes, trucks also use a lot of AI. So I want to emphasize on that. And then I have in the past worked with retail, BFSI, so very insightful sessions so far. Over to you, Deepika.
Thank you, Sridevi. Hi, everyone. I'm Deepika. I lead the AI function for Honeywell Smart Buildings business unit. So our current focus is application of AI to make buildings sustainable and autonomous. And in the past, I've led AI programs spanning across domains like renewable energy, healthcare, real estate, and automotive manufacturing. Glad to be here today.
Am I audible? Hi, I'm Subhashish. I am a Director of Data Sciences at Walmart Global Tech, where my responsibility is to close the data science team. My previous experience beyond retail has been in media and technology and FMCG, bringing about 16 plus years of experience, and look forward to this conversation.
Hi everyone, good morning. I think good afternoon now. So myself Himanshu Parashar. I am the Director for WebTech Corporation, head the data science and the generative AI part, and overall 20 plus industrial experience. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Shubham Dokania. I am a researcher at Mercedes-Benz R&D India. My core area of focus is basically on the intelligence on the interior of the vehicle, but we also do support for autonomous navigation and ADAS systems. I look forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe we'll start with, not everybody is willing to start funding any project that has the word AI in it. That's not true. So like Bhavesh mentioned earlier in his brief talk, that something to do with productivity, something to do with customer experience usually is the focus in bringing AI projects in the corporates, right? I want to hear your perspectives on how do you decide on what should be the prioritization of AI projects in your organizations. Maybe we start with Shubham, because Shubham is belonging to a luxury brand, and luxury brands usually have a lot of money in their pockets. So is it as easy, Shubham, for
I would say that's a difficult question to answer directly because sometimes yes, but I think a lot of these decisions are driven through what the customers require. So I believe one of the most important aspects is doing the correct market research and to figure out what use cases the customers are currently in need of, what enhances the luxury. So for instance, for our case, the focus is primarily to provide luxury while also being completely safe and respecting all the customers' requirement, right? So the market research is a very important aspect. Assuming that all of that is done correctly, in such cases, we find that funding essentially has to be allocated depending on how your AI projects, how your ideas align with the business decisions as well. So for those cases, we find, yes, we do provide funding for such projects and accordingly drive the solutions. Thank you.
Do you want to add, Deepika, how do you do it?
So there are multiple factors to be considered when we have to scale AI, right? So the first thing to see is if there is data, enough data available. And then the first thing that we think of when we say AI is the underlying model, the machine learning model, the deep learning model, now the generative AI model. But these form a very minuscule portion of the complete AI solution. Right? So the infrastructure surrounding the AI solution is vast and complex, and this needs to be robust in order to enable these models to operate as expected. And so that's the first thing. And also the kind of skill set that is required for building AI solutions is not just about data science. It's also about data engineering to ensure the data is of good quality for these models to consume and analyze. And then comes the data storytelling piece. Right? So the insights from or the outcomes of the models need to be well articulated clearly to the business users. Because unless there is the business buy-in for AI, AI will not take off in any organization. And it needs investment. So the right kind of awareness to build an AI solution is absolutely necessary.
Okay. Himanshu, you want to add anything of how you are doing it today?
I think completely aligned with these points, especially when we're investing into the artificial intelligence. The main thing is infrastructure, because the scalability, concurrency, right, and the complexity and security top of these layers. So I see it is leveraging the resource is very, very effective. That's the fundamental things. Just like I take a small example. We know Google has world-class the infrastructure, but that is the foundation layer. It is must to have. Similar way, it is what solution the industries are building. It is infrastructure is the fundamentally needed.
Okay. All of you mentioned that the value of the use case is one of the factors of driving how AI is being funded in organizations. But is value for any AI project always so easily measurable? Is it so easy to measure the success of a use case or a concept in the AI world? For example, I'll tell you, if I'm trying to bring in AI as a proactive measure for safety of a driver, there is no way to measure the ROI of this feature, right? I cannot put a price tag to the human safety. Is it so easy then to measure the ROI of any use case that we are? Do you have any experience of such challenging use cases where ROI is very, very difficult to measure?
Let me take a stab at that. So when I generally try to think of value from AI projects, right, I try to think of that in terms of kind of 4 quadrants maybe. One is, of course, it could help us with the top line or the bottom line. So it could yield revenues or save on costs. But there are 2 other crucial aspects. One is, does it result in creation of more organizational competency areas? Maybe it will going to help us incubate areas of competency like computer vision or generative AI. Now, the build time, the gestation period of these projects are large. So if you just purely look at from an ROI perspective, it may not make sense. But from a long-term perspective, it does make investment worthwhile, right? Two is, does it lead to creation of artifacts that can be used across the organization? Does it lead to creation of intellectual property? Does it lead to creation of resources, maybe modularized codes, packages which can be used to create, let's say, platforms for the larger organizations? So this larger institutional, sort of oversight sort of is important when we look at the ROI perspective. Pure dollar numbers may not do justice when we look at it.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to add, Shubham?
Yes,
like,
so-
I know because you're working on the MBUX especially, like I want to know what's your perspective of ROI?
Yes, so most times I agree with Subhashish that most of the times it's very difficult to actually estimate quantitatively how ROI impacts the use case decisions. However, there are still qualitative measures. So for instance, as you mentioned regarding driver safety, for example, while numbers do not do justice to how the use case ideas or AI might actually impact the performance, we still can actually measure driver safety. For instance, the number of accidents on road, the number of times they might get distracted while driving, for example, right? And this is applicable not just to cars, but also like trucks and any automobile in the sector, right? Similarly, maybe taking a completely different perspective here, that on the luxury side, that is another thing I think which is quite difficult to establish quantitatively, right? But I believe from market value and I don't know, sales could be a very good impact number, we can decide how it is being accepted in the customer community and from user research, from their evaluation and feedback. Based on those decisions, I think it's very important to drive how the research should move forward, which type of models or which type of approaches we should try to integrate more in our pipelines in the future, right? So that would be my perspective here.
Okay. Okay, that's good to understand that yes, there is a pseudo way of looking at number of accidents as a way to measure, say, the feature of the ROI for safety, for example. That's an interesting perspective. Deepika, do you want to speak of any example that you have where you've really succeeded in building a great ROI for your organization?
Sure. Today, the building sector emit about 1/3 of the world's carbon emissions. Right? So because of this reason, one of the key focus areas for our business is to enable buildings, commercial buildings, to go green. And during the pandemic, the indoor air quality came to the forefront. Right? So we were recommended to have maximum possible ventilation. Now the question was, how much is maximum possible ventilation? Right? And if we keep increasing the ventilation, it also means that we are going to be consuming more and more energy. Right? So, but if we do not bring in adequate amount of fresh air from outside into the building, we'll be putting the occupants' health at risk. So there was a need to strike this right balance between indoor air quality and energy efficiency in buildings. So for this purpose, we built machine learning algorithms, which would take into account multiple parameters like indoor air quality, be it CO2, PM2.5, TVOCs, the external weather conditions, the temperature, humidity within the buildings, occupancy in real time, and based on all these parameters, it would recommend the optimal amount of fresh air intake into the building. Now, we saw a lot of opportunity to optimize this ventilation dynamically in many buildings because most of them were either taking in more than required or lesser than required. So this was one use case for us for dynamically optimizing the ventilation. And once we deploy this solution, the next step would be to measure and monitor the efficacy of the solution. So for this, again, we built yet another machine learning algorithm which would predict the baseline, or more like the expected amount of energy consumption in the building given the current operating conditions. And then this would be compared against the actual energy consumption as per the meters in the building. And if the actual consumption is way beyond the baseline, then adjustments would be made in terms of energy consumption as we go along. Right? So yeah, so these are some of the use cases where we could measure very clearly the ROI from an AI solution, saying that this is the amount of energy we saved because of this solution.
That's wonderful. Himanshu, since you are into something very unique like AI for trains, I wanted to hear any use case that you have that you could share with the audience today.
Yeah, sure. So when I was thinking that I will go next because in Wabtec, we build the locomotives. I think maybe most of the people, if not aware of, so we know the Vande Bharat train, right, which is Wabtec is also building the trains and part of the government initiative, right? So I would say it is a couple of use cases I would like to share. Let's say one of the signaling system in railways, right, which is very, very critical, right? So generative AI, how it can, select a best path in terms of signaling. So at least, the signaling system, can improve overall. Then what is the shortest and best path to achieve, right? Apart from this, there are a couple of other use cases. We say the security measures, right? That is fundamentally very critical, especially in locomotives, trains. So these are, the areas we are working towards the generative AI. Apart from this, the AI operations, I would say the new things, which is, also we are working towards. So how the AI ops, because mostly people are working toward the generative AI, right? And building the solution. But equally parallel, it is important, part of the AI operations, because how this, in sustainable model, it can be achievable in long term.
Great, thanks for sharing that. I'll go into a slightly more, a topic that is lot debated in the world today, which is the biases in AI. So before I start with the questions to the panelists, I also wanted to mention that why these biases in AI are an important aspect to be, for all of us to be looking at, right? You may have heard in terms of how Google, when it launched its image recognition use case, way back they released the model for people to use, and one of the fundamental flaw in that model was that it looked at some people from Africa and categorized it as gorillas. This is really, really appalling to see how somebody has built a model. It shows inherently how the biases existed in that model. That's one example. The second example that I hear very often is on Amazon, on how they had built a model for hiring, the likelihood of people joining, and it was extremely biased from the gender perspective, right? So it's not just about building great AI models or using this technology of AI models, but to be very, very conscious, responsible, and be ethical when we build models of this kind. So one of the key questions that always comes is, if I take the example of Amazon, of how their model had the bias of gender inbuilt into it, it is also because of the society aspect of it, right? Because in history, number of women working in the corporate worlds were less, and the model had learned that itself. Now, it's not easy to take this bias off because our society is filled with a lot of biases inherently as well, right? So that's a perspective of every AI practitioner to have, that, consciously can I remove those biases from the existing models or the models that we are building for the organizations. So I would like to understand what are the best practices organizations are doing to be able to tackle this bias problem that exists in AI and AI solutions that everybody is building at large. So maybe we start with Shubhashish. Walmart, I'm sure, is building tons and tons of things. There is also a Target story about biases that existed, if you're aware of the lady who was detected pregnant even before.
Walmart, the whole concept of ethical AI centers around the fact that we treat everybody with equal. Is that audible now?
Yeah.
Okay. So in general, it really centers around ensuring that we deal with, or give the deserving request to all our customers. We treat them as equal. In general, if we talk about ethical AI, and I'm talking about a very general perspective, I think it has different paradigms to it, right? One is, of course, that we look at the bias in terms of that models can propagate. And there are different ways to deal with it. You can either pre-process the data before you put it to a model. There are ways that models can itself take care of themselves while you're building the models. I mean, models typically would optimize on something that we call as a loss function. You're trying to minimize on the error, for example, right? You can tweak that loss function to ensure there's some amount of minimization that happens for the bias itself. Or you can bring in the bias mitigation in the post modeling stage, sort of as a post hoc adjustment. There are fairly best established ways and means in literature to do that. Often at times there's a bit of a trade-off in terms of accuracy, right? When you're looking at bias mitigation methods. But it's not just bias, I would say. Many of the models that we see that are propagated now are opaque models, black box models, right? So it makes it all the more imperative that we look at transparent machine learning models, which means that, again, a whole host of techniques have arrived which ensures that models are interpretable at a global level, which means that we know why, at a meta level, the models are behaving why they are, and then at a local level, which is that we are able to kind of explain each prediction of sort. So, slightly holistic perspective, that's what I would suggest on. I mean, looking at overall bias, looking at the explainability of a model, plus, of course, we talked about gentleman in the morning talked about regulations that are coming into play across different countries. So even that needs to be taken into consideration while you're looking at it.
Yeah. So I think you bring up a good point that a lot of these black box models, there is even no way to even find that it has an inherent bias that is crept into it. So there is a new concept called glass box models. I'm sure all of you must have heard. But the idea of the glass box models is about bringing explainability or interpretability of models so that people are aware what are those parameters that are contributing significantly to the prediction power of AI, right? That's an interesting thought. Thank you for that. But I would love to hear from others as well in terms of what other best practices you have in your organizations to eliminate bias as much as possible. I know 100% is never possible, but probably Deepika, what have you tried?
Yeah, so bias is one aspect, but quality as such, right? So there are three major challenges that we typically encounter when we try to operationalize AI at scale. One is the lack of data in terms of both quality and quantity. The second is the lack of the robust infrastructure. The third is the lack of probably understanding of how AI systems work, which requires a bit of a mindset transformation, which is the hardest nut to crack. Right? So in terms of best practices, what we do is we build those standardized data pipelines, which can be reused across use cases. And that's where frameworks like CRISP-DM, it may be an age-old framework, but is relevant even today. So these kind of frameworks really help building those data platforms, which can be standardized. That is one thing we follow. And we have those robust data engineering practices in place, right, to ensure that the quality of data is good in terms of bias. And when we deal with IoT data, it's mostly about missing values, anomalies, outliers, things like that. So those data engineering practices really help us build our AI solutions at scale.
Sure, okay. Himanshu, you want to add?
Sure. So basically, a couple of things I would like to just add, not to repeat. So in this security aspect, which is, let's say this is transformation journey, because now we are, shifting data science to a AI part, which is generative AI. So it is a, transformation journey, and people, mindset, mental model also, becomes gradually changed. It is not sudden. So of course, security is an aspect, because when you build some, the solution on AI, so there are a couple of, let's say, the open libraries, open source, softwares, or, the libraries, which is, security and compliance is also the matters. So acceptability is also, becomes sometimes critical in these aspects. Then apart from this, when we talk about the future model, right, over the, it is in phases. It is not just, day one, just, plug and play. So I think those also go this way.
Yeah. Again, I like your point on open source, because anybody out there can put a model for consumption for many other users, and nobody knows how that model has been built, right? Especially when we have transfer learning concepts that are brought in. So something to ponder and think over when we try and use open source concepts, especially within production scale organization solutions as well. So that, Deepika mentioned about data being one of the biggest issues when we are also talking about biases. But I also want to hear the perspectives, and many organizations that I've worked in the past have always had data silos. Now, that hinders a lot of how well you can build your solutions in the organizations. So, while there is progress being made to democratize data within the organizations, and now I do hear democratization of data across, there are organizations that are trying to share data and build, cross-collaborate as well. But how big is the data silo problem? Does it still exist? If so, in what magnitude? Maybe we hear from Shubham.
Yes, so I think one of the biggest challenges with dealing with data is the sheer volume of data that is available. So there's data from multitude of sources, right? You can have data from the customers, you can have data from different entities, and the products that are currently live from your organization, right? And every single day, there's a massive amount of data which gets dumped. So I believe first and foremost, the biggest perspective change that is required is about data warehousing, creating data lakes for easy access for anyone in the organization with the right amount of administrative access. So I mention access specifically because while it is important to collect data, have it in a centralized location, it's very important that we know which individual people have access to the data, in what capacity, and what this data is actually going to be used for. So we pay very, very high degree of attention to data privacy and how data must be protected, but also data quality. So we try to establish there should be multiple filters for all the data that you're collecting and how you arrange the data, which individuals have access to this data, and to document every single thing for what the data has been used for. So many practices, for example, data anonymization and just encryption is also to be taken into account so that to protect the data. For example, when you're dealing with data from customers, like what products they buy, for example, in an e-commerce platform, and what services they are availing. For example, for Mercedes-Benz, we also have data from customers who are buying the vehicles, right? People who are driving the vehicles in different locations. So all of this data needs to be protected, and no one should be able to access any private information, right? So data protection and data availability, along with centralization, play a very big role.
Yeah, I like your concept of centralization. That's cool. Maybe Shubhashish, how does Walmart today, are there data silos? How do you look at democratizing data in Walmart?
It's kind of similar to what Shubham talked about, essentially ensuring that we have data in centralized locations, lakes, and so, and of course ensuring beyond, again, what Shubham talked about, we have appropriate metadata, data lineages mentioned, so we are sure about the the provenance of it, the provenance of the data, the source that it comes from is something that we can track with accuracy. So that helps us establish a lot of trust and faith in the data sources.
Cool. I recently read an article from Gartner which said only about 50 to 54% of projects actually move from pilot to production in the AI space. That's really, really small as a percentage compared to the other technologies that are in place. So maybe Deepika, why do you think the pilot to production is so low?
So when it comes to productization, like I said, that entire platform is a critical piece. And then it is not just about building the models and deploying them once, right? It's also about maintenance of those models post-deployment. The AI ops or the ML ops piece is as critical as the development and deployment piece. Right? So there are going to be data drifts, there are going to be model drifts, so it becomes important to automatically identify these and trigger the retraining of these models. So many a time, the models are blamed to be not accurate enough. Right? So that's one challenge where, because of which the operationalization of AI does not happen like it is expected to happen.
Okay, yeah. So I think that concludes our things. I just wanted to summarize 2 points, 3 takeaways. Please pitch in if I missed anything. But one is Look at the data that you feed into your models to be able to ensure there's no bias. I also like the idea of the centralized way of democratizing data. And third one is on how we can scale AI with best practices that were shared on the forum today. So thank you everybody for listening in.
Let me invite Rajesh Sharma and Gurpreet Sadhana to give the mementos, please, on the stage. I'll also require a photographer, yes? Yeah, go ahead, please. Meanwhile, since we are running short of time and lots of people hungry stomachs are crying, let me introduce Vishal Chopra, the next speaker for what is called as social finance innovation. He deals a lot on the full stack provider, manufacturing, risk management, and distributing wide portfolio, customized credit, insurance, and saving products for 300 million individuals spread across. That's a very large number of people. Can I invite Vishal on the stage, please? Vishal. A group photo with a smile or a thumbs up, or both.